I think the perfect image of what masculinity is was Jesus. Everything that he did was out of love. He wasn't violent, right? He didn't care much about like the materialistic things that so many of us cared about. And I truly believe like that's what masculinity is.
Well, I don't think the world really has a clear grasp on what, like, we can't agree on what masculinity is as a world. I think that's one of the problems.
Money, I think it's a huge thing, because if you want to be able to prosper and to be able to help other individuals, people in the world, like, it requires capital. If you want to help out help build the kingdom of God, like, it requires capital to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, I think back then it was the idea of, okay, if I have money, I can do so many things in this life. I can go to places I want to. I can live the way I want to. I can enjoy my life more because I have the means to do so.
We are back. Beyond Logic, episode 4. I wasn't joking when I said we're gonna skip the intro, right? We're gonna skip the intro for this one, and we're gonna jump into it. So as you guys are consistent guests that we have over here, not necessarily a guest, also like he's serving mostly as a co-host for now until I fire him. And then what's going on, Mr. Kai? Welcome back to Beyond Logic podcast episode 4. How you doing today, brother?
I'm good. Glad to be here again. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course.
Until you fire me.
No, I'm just joking. I like to have you here. I like to have you.
I'm your practice guest, right? So you have real guests.
It's kind of what I'm thinking about. We're gonna like, obviously we need to get more cameras, because I know we only have 2 cameras, but as we get more guests, I would love to kind of have you. Like, we're gonna have like essentially like a guest, me, myself, and you, and we're just gonna be interviewing this guest. I think that's gonna be very interesting, because like there's some questions that I'm gonna ask that you may not perhaps think of asking, or some question that you may think of asking that I may not ask. So I think it's just gonna be more engaging and more fun, So, but we'll see about that. But yeah, I'm excited for the conversation and the topic that we're gonna go through today. I know you're not totally aware of the topics yet, but it's gonna be
no idea. It's always a surprise for me.
Yeah, so before, when Kai comes on the podcast, I don't necessarily tell him what we're gonna talk about. Like, literally the night before, he's gonna ask me, "Yo, what are we talking about today?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'll let you know in the morning." So that's typically how we run this, But no, today's discussion is gonna be, it's gonna be very interesting. I think some of it might get like backlash in terms of like what particularly I'm gonna say in regards to the discussion, But
are we gonna get canceled today?
No, we're not gonna cancel. Like, what is? Unless you're saying something that is just like obnoxious and crazy, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. We're not getting to that point. But funny story. So I'm gonna call today one of my clients, and because typically when I'm gonna call in my room, people, like in my apartment, people see the light. People always ask, "Yo, like, what is that light? Like, what is, like, first of all, like, they ask, like, what is that? Like the softbox, you know what I'm talking about, right? I mean, this one right here, yeah. Because it's just like, it's just there. Everybody always asks that, because even when I'm on the call with like some of the, like, the Meta reps, some of the Google reps, some of like the what is it, the Pinterest rep, all of them is like, what is this big thing over here, And so this particular client that I was on a call with, this is not the first time he's asked that, but it was just there again on the call, because typically I'll blur out the background. He sees that. I'm like, oh, this is a light box. I use it a lot for content. And I'm telling him, he's like, oh, okay. So, because he knows that, like, I already produce like a lot of content. And then I told him, yeah, so we, I just launched a podcast, and we record a lot of like just additional content in a podcast. He's like, oh, so like, what is the podcast about? And I told him, oh, go to my Instagram. You should see that. And that was the particular day that I posted the episode number 2. So he goes on my Instagram. He's like, he sees the thumbnail that we did. He's like, whoa, identity? He's like, Frank, what's going on? Like, what do you mean identity? And he starts asking me all this question, because he's shocked, because it's not typically something I guess maybe he doesn't see me talking about this episode, because it's typically like we talk about business, we talk about marketing, So he kind of expected like the podcast to be about like business and marketing, which we are going to talk all about business, because as it relates to the overall like structure and the pillars of like the podcast. But I think it was just, it was interesting just to kind of see that, because a lot of times people will try to kind of box you into specific like just a specific, oh, since you do this, like we only know you for like doing this, you know. And I don't know, I just thought that was super interesting, yeah, and kind of wanted to share that. But I think just no, another thing too that I wanted to also add on top of that, you know, and I think that I've talked about this in some of like the previous episodes, you know, because people like will see me, oh, like Frankie, you know, fitness guy, business guy, and a lot of people don't know about like the spiritual aspect of me, you know, like I love God, I love Jesus, and so this is new for me to talk about God, to talk about Jesus, and to talk about like my faith. This is very new to me, so I think it may be shocking to some degree to a lot of people, you know. But I think here's the thing though. I used to be kind of like scared to talk about faith, to talk about God, as much of the world is. I truly believe that a lot of people are scared to talk about things because it kind of it goes against the grain of where society kind of goes, you know. Because people like in a lot of organizations, in a lot of places, like you're not really permitted to talk about God. It's a weird thing. It's kind of like taboo to talk about the Holy Spirit, you know. And so, like now, I don't feel that. I'm openly, freely talking about God because that's like a very big part of my life. And I think, and here's the thing that I want, because people now see me doing this, I want people to feel comfortable to be able to talk about their faith, to be able to talk about God, you know. And so that's another big piece and another big push to why I felt very pushed to do the podcast, you know.
What was the biggest change?
The biggest change, dude, it's like
why before you weren't kind of open to talking about God and now you are? What's the thing that changed?
Yeah, I think in the past, dude, I just cared too much about what other people thought of me. You know, And
what were you scared they would think of though? If you would talk about God before, what was your biggest fear?
I think, oh, he's weird, because the typical like, oh, he's weird, you know, he's not like normal, and kind of like that fear of like he doesn't fit in, because I think in the past I've tried to fit in with the culture, with the past, you know. But as time progressed, as I started to find more about my identity and who I am, specifically in Christ, I'm like, this is something that I have to talk about, because it's a big piece of me. I think sometimes people only portray to the world what they think that the world likes about them, right? And I think I was very much in that same boat, and I didn't think that people, I didn't really know about my identity like that. I didn't really know who I was, and like I was scared to what people would think, you know. But like that's not the case anymore, and like that's not the case anymore because again, it's just like finding more of my identity and who I am, and not really care about like what other people think. Now I'm not saying like I'm 100% like I don't care about, you know, like it still affects me because like I'm still a human being, you know, but like it's like less and less and less now, you know. And that's a lot of it particularly happened by me just kind of deepening my relationship like with God, you know, just kind of understanding Him more, you know. And so that's that. Because like again, this podcast, a lot of it is we're going to talk about God, talk about religion, not just Christianity, but like other religion as well, you know. So yeah. I know, like, have you ever like felt like, have you ever been in that space where, because I know you're kind of recently coming into Christ, but like did you ever feel like that's not something you wanted to talk about, like kind of make openly known to other people?
I would never openly speak about it I wasn't the type to attach God or Christ into anything like just out of the blue. Okay. It would have to be a conversation that comes up naturally through whatever means. Then I would talk about it. I would be open to talking about it. I would never hide the fact that I was a Christian. But I felt a lot of the time when I was Christian, I can say I've been Christian for 10 years, but a lot of that 10 years has been me not really knowing what Christianity was, or at least to me, it's like I wasn't even exploring what Christianity was. I wasn't trying to know God better. I wasn't reading the Bible. I wasn't going to church, but I called myself a Christian. So whenever I would talk about Christianity, it would feel like similar to in business, how you feel kind of like an imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, yep.
And it's a weird, religion's weird like that, because imposter syndrome is not really, you shouldn't really feel that in religion, I feel like, for any religion, because it's your faith, it's your belief, right? No one can take that from you. Right. And for me though, it was like, I don't even know. Like some people would talk about stories in the Bible. I would have no idea what those stories are because I would have an idea of like, oh, I've heard about it before. I've seen a movie about it or whatever. But I would never be able to articulate any of the stuff. Okay. So I didn't really talk about it much just because I didn't have the knowledge.
Okay. No, that's fair. And I think some part of it too, because I mean, we live in in the States, and I think just Christianity. I think it's the majority of the religion over here. Like that's the big religion over here, But I think like in some other country, you really can't talk about your faith or like at least like being a Christian because you get persecuted and you get, I think it's still like that now to this day. You can't openly.
Depends on the country.
Yeah. It's like in some country, not all of it, but like in some country, like if you're a Christian, like you can't talk about that. You can't, or you'll get, you get persecuted. It's not because me and my Bible study, me and Rico were talking about that. I was like, wow, that's like I think it's like in North or South Korea. Like I don't think you can talk about openly being.
South Korea is very open about.
Maybe not South. Yeah,
North
but like
Korea. I don't know, but I would guess that they would be. Okay. Against it, yeah. They want to place their ruler as God in that country. Yeah. So there's no room for other gods in their eyes. Yeah. And they view Christianity or any other religion as just, this is a different God that's not Kim Jong-un.
Oh man. So kind of the first thing so kind of enough of that, but first thing that I wanted to chat through is about like masculinity. Remember we talked about, this is one of the subjects I wanted to talk about, like masculinity and Christian manhood, because masculinity as it's portrayed today, I think it's just not right, and I don't think that's what masculine. And I'll explain, what I believe it is today and what is being pushed out there. I don't think that's what masculinity is. I think it's particularly dangerous, especially for like the younger generation, younger kids. And I'll bring up Andrew Tate too as well, even though he's not very like relevant today, at least not that. Maybe to some people, but like he was like this very big thing, and like he pushed a lot of what he thinks like masculinity is, which is, shredded, like big dude with cars, money, women, and see that's kind of like the message that he was pushing. And to myself, like I was like, oh, I think that's what I thought masculinity at the time, when he was pushing this. And like, yeah, like we should have all this stuff, not that it's wrong, but like I don't think that's what masculinity is, right? And I'm in the perspective in which I'm looking at is from just like biblical. I think the perfect image of what masculinity is was Jesus, right? And then when we start to like describe what Jesus was in that time, he was just love, like a very, very loving character. And I'll use the word character, but like a very loving, a person. Everything that he did was out of love. He wasn't violent, right? He didn't care much about like the materialistic things that so many of us cared about, right? And I truly believe like that's what masculinity is, right? Just out of love, and this not what is being pushed out today. As I just mentioned, it's much about like power today. It's much about having materialistic things. It's much about money. It's much about a lot of women. Again, that's this. And I think that's very dangerous. I think that's very dangerous, and I do to a large degree kind of want to change that narrative as we continue to kind of like push like the content that we do, because I really think there needs to be a change of that, because I think the biggest people that are going to be impacted is the younger generation. If they're growing up and thinking that this is what the image of masculinity is, and if I don't have that, then I'm not masculine, and so that becomes a problem. And then again, going back into identity, which we have been talking about a lot on the podcast, it starts to impact their identity and leads to additional just kind of like trauma or whatever else, But I'm curious to see what your perspective, like, what do you think masculinity is? Both from like, what do you see like the world masculinity and like Christianhood masculinity?
Well, I don't think the world really has a clear grasp on what, like, we can't agree on what masculinity is as a world. I think that's one of the problems that we have, and then why
like secular, right?
Well, it's like someone like Andrew Tate came to influence because he had a lot of the things that people thought was what masculinity should be. And he has a lot of those traits. I still think that you should be very competent. You should be able to articulate your words. You should be very strong physically and mentally. You should be very disciplined. Like some of the things that he said is not necessarily wrong.
And I'll agree with that. Yeah, I'll agree with that as well. Yeah.
I think that the biggest issue with that version of masculinity is that it's self-serving.
Yep.
Meaning you're trying to get all of these things so that you can be better, so you can be richer, so you can get the girls, so you can have the things you want. Whereas, and I think this aligns more with Jesus, is where the greatest version of yourself is one that is as powerful as it can become and as it can be, but in the service of others. So what can you do? What gifts were you given? And what is your purpose in life? And all of that aligned to in the servitude of others.
Okay.
So I see it very much so as that, is that you should be as strong as you possibly can. I mean,
like strong, like physically strong, or
yeah, okay. Absolutely. If you're a young man, you should be as physically strong as you possibly can. And everyone has different levels of competency there. Right? Everyone's different, and it's okay. But I think that it is definitely there's a saying, I forgot what it was. It was like, it's a shame for a man to grow up without seeing the beauty that his body is capable of.
Oof.
And it's absolutely true, because being physically strong is a foundation that gives you competence,
yes,
and confidence in other layers of your life. So I still think that there's some truth to that.
Physically strong.
It's not just about getting strong for the sake, like a lot of young men, myself included, was about getting strong for the sake of attracting women.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to look strong because I want a six-pack, and if I get a six-pack, then maybe she'll love me.
Yeah.
And that's not the case, of course, but we're led that way.
Yeah.
And it often starts that way. And I think that there's just something about channeling a lot of the energy you have into building yourself physically that is, it forces you to practice discipline. It forces you to learn other skills like nutrition and fitness. And it forces you to push yourself daily, or whatever your cadence is, to go beyond what you think is possible. And so that training in itself it teaches you a lot of the core things about what it means to essentially be masculine. So I do believe that.
Yeah.
And I don't look upon anyone who is physically weaker as not masculine.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. I wanted to also
that's the big distinction as well. But it's like a cause. It's not a causality, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you're, you could be this marathon ultra runner, and that could be your form of your physical pursuit. That could still be masculine. Like you could still be a masculine person having no pursuit physically, but you're maybe extremely dedicated mentally and intellectually into some aspect of your life. I could see that, although I find it harder and harder nowadays to find any sort of masculine role models that aren't to some degree physically capable in some way.
Okay.
If you're older, then of course you're an old man, but you should have some intellect there. That makes sense. But like if you're in your 20s, 30s, even 40s, you should be as strong and capable as you possibly can. So I think that actually is for our age, for this age, a defining characteristic of masculinity is some sort of physical pursuit or some sort of pursuit of physical excellence.
Okay, no, I like that. And so I think so. Here are other distinction of what makes masculinity, and I actually wrote this down over here. It's like strength, as we were just talking about strength. Yeah. Humility, I think that's a big That's a big one. And then just leadership, and the big thing is just sacrifice, right? I think obviously that there's other things that you could add on to that, but I think those big proponent of what makes up masculinity, and obviously it's not something that is being portrayed today in today's culture, And I think just so being obviously like protective, and because the Bible said this, and I want to read the verse from like the Bible about obviously like God created us in His image to have dominion, right? And dominion, not in the sense like having power over things, but just having dominion and taking care of essentially like the livestock, right? I'm gonna read
It is having power over.
Huh?
It is having power over.
And here's the thing though, like I think that's the distinction, because some people like obsess over power, like in the sense like I think it can be looked in two ways, in a negative aspect.
Yeah.
Right. But I like the word dominion. I like the word dominion as opposed to like power. It's I don't know. Power can have some negative. There's some negative connotation about.
There's a little deeper layer to dominion than to power. Fine, but at the end, humanity still has power over this world. We control every aspect about it.
Yep.
And I think that's as God intended. But now, what we do with that power is the most important part.
Yep.
I think that's what you're getting at with dominion.
Yep. That's very true. And like this particular verse in the Bible, this is like Genesis 1, 26 to 27. It says, "Then God said, 'Let us make man in our own image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion,'" the word that we're talking about, "over this fish, over the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and everything that creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image, and in the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. God designed man with purpose and with responsibility." And I was reading that, I was like, oh wow, So, to a large extent, I think that's masculinity also kind of like is us also being able to take dominion over these things that God has created, because he gave us the ability to create that. And I think it also serves with that purpose. Yeah.
I think a good question to ask is why.
Why?
Yeah. I've been thinking about that a lot.
I feel like I'm just having a deja vu, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
But why?
So I think there's a lot of what's going on in the world right now where, understandably, we're at a place where things are, iffy, especially with the environment, especially with a lot of the sustainability practices that are going on. And this brings up the previous idea of power. Like, we have this power. If we use this power in the wrong way over our dominion of Earth dies. It could absolutely die. We could kill.
Wait, say that again?
We have the power to kill the Earth, essentially.
Okay, yeah.
Through whatever we're doing. So a lot of the backlash, or a lot of the, let's say, the swing of the pendulum in the other direction, is that we need to take care of the Earth better by doing certain things that maybe are like, okay, we need to, and some people take this to the extreme in the sustainability field, where they don't fly airplanes at all.
Yeah.
They recycle everything. They minimize their use, et cetera. All of these things are good, but there are also dark sides to that, right? Like, if we are compromising the lives of human lives for the sake of saving, let's say, a certain species of fish or something, I don't think that's right. Now, I don't think we should kill the fish off purposely, but if we had to pick between, like, let's say, I don't know if this is true.
We're supposed to eat the fishes.
Yeah, we can eat the fish. But there was the California fires, right? There was the whole, I don't know if it's true, but there was the thing that the dam that had all the water was not being filled. The water that was from north of California was not getting to the south of California because they were rerouting the water into the ocean so that they don't disrupt the habitat along the way. And the habitat along the way included these like small fish that would have died otherwise if we did direct that water. And then it's the question of, well, why are we placing the lives of a small fish over the lives of human beings? And there's like a argument that can be made, like we should do our very best to try to not influence that ecosystem or like destroy an ecosystem if we can manage it. But this is at the cost of
human lives
and homes and decades of decades of civilization that was built up there. Yeah. Or not decades, sorry, hundreds of years. I don't think they ever had a fire that big ever.
Yeah.
I think that's a warning of like, if we place things on this earth above human lives, if you do as an individual, you are choosing to place whatever is of this world above not only yourself but God, because we are made in the image of God. There's a reason we're supposed to be first, is because not only do we have the power to change things, but we also have the power to make things better. So like maybe in this generation, those fish die, but the dam is filled. We have the water, less houses burn. Let's say that's a hypothetical. One species of fish, they're not extinct. We can save them. We have the ability to bring them back. We can give them a new habitat if we choose to do so. So I think the biggest issue with the idea of sustainability is inability to have the foresight that we can fix problems, and we can fix them very well. And we shouldn't limit ourselves now for the sake of thinking what might happen if we don't do these things, and then the world's going to end if we don't do these things. And instead have trust that we need to do these things now so that we can flourish. And once we flourish, we'll have the capacity to fix those problems. And we can fix them better if we're in a state of abundance and flourishing, you know?
Yeah. No, that's super interesting. And just, I was talking about this with a good friend of mine yesterday. Like with the whole fire in California, like I wonder if this is like kind of like a biblical thing, like this God intended for this to happen. And the reason why I say that is because right now, like we're studying Revelation, you know, and then like the church in like Ephesus, or if I'm sure if I'm saying that right, but like Ephesus, do you know what I'm talking about? The church in Ephesus? Okay, so it's essentially this it's a place. I think now it's like somewhere like in Europe, like modern day Europe, that they were like flourishing at a time, right? But at the time there was also like a lot of greed and just like a lot of sin in that particular place. But like it was like a very rich, like environment, nation, country, if you want to say, because they had like, you know, because the main source of like income was because they had like there's like a sea, there's like water that they would like do trades in and out, right? So that's how a lot of the income came to that specific place, and it was very wealthy. And over time, like the water dried out. Like God just took the water away, so they wouldn't have that source of income anymore because there was just that specific nation was just full of sin, and so God took that away, right? And so eventually that place just kind of died out because everybody was just like, it was just very sinful. People was just like indulging in not godly things, right? They were like worshiping these like pagan gods and things like that, right? And so God took that away. I'm curious if that's kind of a similar thing that's happening, that because there's many other places that these like destructive and these massive chaos is happening. I wonder if that's something that's similar that happened in California, or is it just our inability to be able to take care of our things? So that's just something that I was
Can
very.
it be both?
It could be both. Yeah, I mean, could it be?
It could be both. Can it not? Our inability to take care of what we have due to our sin, due to what we think we should be doing, rather than what God wants us to do. The consequences that happen are like we don't know.
Yeah.
Only God knows the consequences of your actions.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, sin is designed so that, like, God doesn't put sin there so that we're removed of all the joys and pleasures in life. He puts sin there as a way to protect us. You shouldn't sin because you're hurting yourself in some way, in orders of magnitude that you can't yet see.
Right.
So there's the first, second, third, whatever. Like nobody, you can't see like I would know my immediate action if I punch you in the face right now.
What would happen?
You would punch me back.
I would destroy you.
we would get in a fight on this podcast. But
he's using his brain.
The second, third degree we kind of infer, right?
Yeah.
Hey, like, you know, we're gonna be weird around each other now because I punched you in the face for no reason, and then like we're gonna hang out less. What's the consequence of that? Because I punched you in the face, 10 years from now, we might not start a business together that ends up helping a bunch of people.
Exactly. I
stuff like that. We can't see the future, so that's why it's there.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, no, I get that. And so just, yeah, that's oof. Yeah. So so another thing that I wanna pose is that, because we were talking about masculinity, right? It's kind of like the general topic of what we're talking about right now, right? And so we talked about how masculinity is like, you know, being physically like strong, almost like warriors to some degree.
One part of it.
Yeah, one part of it is being like physically strong, like warriors, to be able to protect and to defend, right? And so how do you balance being like a warrior and at the same time like a servant? Warriors, okay, very I'm gonna use the word aggressive, like needs to be aggressive sometimes to be able to protect, and even like when people like wars and stuff like that, like a warrior at the same time, like how do you balance being a servant? It's I think not like the two. It's kind of hard to put the two together. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. It's kind of hard. He's no. How so? How not? So
Because warriors are serving their king, their kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
They're protecting, supposed to be at least. So I don't necessarily see it that way. I think for the reason that you have to be strong is so that you're capable of when something bad happens to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you are, if you like you're not a, I'm not saying you're not a good person or anything, but you're not capable of truly becoming the best good version of yourself if you can't also choose to do the worst thing. If you don't have the capacity to enact violence, you're not a good person for not enacting violence. You're just harmless.
Okay.
So the choice is there. And if you have the choice to enact that power, but you choose not to because out of greater service, I think that's where those two connect.
Okay. No, I like that. I didn't really see it from that perspective. Not like that.
Yeah, but I get what you mean. Like, the idea of the warrior is the one that is constantly like, okay, you're aggressive, you're fighting, you're killing people in battle. You the sword and shield, whatever.
And the thing with this, like warriors typically have servants, people that serve them.
I don't know.
And because it just even when you look about just like in the past. Like warriors, there were these aggressive people that went to war. When they came
on a social hierarchy, they were higher.
Yeah, they were higher, right? And there's typically people that would serve them.
The servants and the peasants.
Yeah. And so that's kind of at least that's like the lens in which I was looking for. It's like how do you balance that? Okay, so you're a warrior, but at the same time, like if you have servants, like how are you? And what you mentioned, like if you were like the servant part of it is like protecting. Like the protecting, if it's in a village or something, like protecting like the village, I guess that's another way of like serving, But no, that's interesting.
But a warrior can put down his sword.
Yeah.
And he still has the skills to help.
Yeah.
You can build houses as a warrior.
You
can help lift a tree that fell on someone's leg.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I think the idea of I hate repeating this because it's so overused. But it's like, being a warrior in the garden is better than being a gardener at war.
Ooh, say that again? Being a warrior in a garden is better than being a garden of war? Is that what you said?
Being a gardener at war.
Or being a gardener at war.
But essentially it's like if you have the capacity to be, protect, defend, but then you don't need to because you're in a peaceful place.
Mm-hmm.
That's better than being a person who tends to a peaceful place, but is placed into a situation where you need to act in a more aggressive way.
I like that. We're gonna shift direction here in a little bit. Money and greed. So it kind of ties back to so masculinity. I talked about how the money aspect of it, which money can also be a sense of like power, right? Money and greed. This is and there's like so many different directions in which we can take this, but I think for the most part, dude, just like Christianity, at least how I see it, and how I see it, and what I've seen, and I think obviously the things like people see money as like a very bad thing, right? People see money as a very bad thing, but as opposed to like seeing money as a tool. Right, because like in a lot of the churches, and a lot of churches and like just like in Christian home, they seem like, see like money is like the root to all evil, But I think there's the big misconception around that particularly, And I'm gonna share one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Just money. I think it's a huge thing because if you want to be able to prosper and to be able to help other individuals, people in the world, like it requires capital. If you want to help out like help build the kingdom of God, like it requires capital to be able to do that, right? And obviously, like you need money to be able to take care of yourself, to build yourself up and things within that scope, you know. But I think it's just again, just people see money as a bad thing, and I see how it can be a bad thing if you like look at it the wrong way. Like if you serve money as your God, which a lot of people do, that. Yeah, that's a bad thing because like you're serving, like you're letting that be like your God essentially, right? And I don't think that's the way that God intended it to be. But I think the people again just kind of misunderstand this, and so they're afraid of money. Some people are afraid to come into wealth, right? And I'm not sure if it's because the fear of like money taking over and like just letting money being like the dominant thing that they serve in their life. But I don't think that's the case though. I think it's just like that fear because again they just kind of misinterpret like the Bible and saying that because it says like money is the root of all evil, but they just kind of misinterpret that. But what is your perspective on that?
I don't know many people that are scared of money that would like,
Kyle,
if I got a bunch of money, I would be scared. Okay, maybe
you haven't been in the church long enough.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Me not growing up in any church.
Yeah.
My perspective back then on churches was that it was a tool designed by a lot of people to not necessarily like against the religion or so, but against the practice of it. I was very much like, oh, these people are like, these pastors are all, they're all fake. They're all extracting money from people through the.
That was your view. That's what you.
That was my view, yeah, because I saw a lot of that happening.
Which it happened. Oh yeah, that's very true. Yeah, that's very true.
And
I think and that's when that's when like they serve money. Right, as opposed to use
absolutely.
They serve money as opposed to that being a tool.
Probably one of the worst sins you could commit.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. And I can see how then people kind of misinterpret that because like somebody had like having a lot of money, then like you just mentioned like with the pastors and stuff like that. Somebody having a lot of money, then they could potentially like use that for for wrong. But anyway, continue what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I view it very much so as the tool that it is now. But there was a time when I wanted money just for the sake of having money. And, I was brought up in a very, we weren't a poor family, but we weren't rich either. So we had to be very, my dad was very frugal. He didn't spend a lot of money on things. He only spent money when he needed to. He bought most of the time, the cheapest things. Occasionally, he would buy things that are higher quality, mostly for me.
For you? Okay.
Yeah.
So you were spoiled then. Not just kidding.
I didn't get everything I wanted, but I got everything I needed. So I'm blessed and grateful for that.
Oh, that's good.
But I think back then it was the idea of, okay, if I have money, I can do so many things in this life. I can go to places I want to. Yep. I can live the way I want to. Yeah. I can enjoy my life more because I have the means to do so.
Yeah.
And again, all of that view back then, a lot of it was self-serving. It was, well, why do I want the money? Oh, I want it so I can attract some women and take these women on trips to different countries and buy the fancy car. Why do I fancy car to attract the woman? It's like it's all very self-serving back then.
Yeah. Do you think having a fancy car is like? Do you think it's like there's something wrong with that? Like having like the big houses and just taking like the vacation, the trip. Do you think that's like wrong? Do you think it is self-serving to be able to do that?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If you have I think the means of acquiring it is what makes it right or wrong.
Okay.
For example, if you acquired the same car, right? Let's just say it's a Ferrari, right?
Team Ferrari. Team Lambo, actually. Let's go.
I don't even know. I honestly, when I get to that point and I'm like, I'm actually going to buy one, then I'm going to go shopping. I don't know. I have to sit in each one of them and feel it out. But I think the means of acquiring it, if you acquired your wealth through, let's say, morally questionable ways, and then you use that wealth to buy the car that you want, I think that's ethically probably wrong because you've screwed over some people that had some real consequences. Maybe they lost their business. Yep. Maybe they lost their life savings. Maybe they trusted you and you broke that trust, and then you use that to buy a car, a material thing. Yeah, that to me, if feels wrong.
Okay.
But if you were somebody who acquired your wealth through, morally right ways, you built a business that provided real value, people exchanged their money willingly, and they didn't regret it afterwards, and you built this, you acquired the wealth, and then you decide that you want to spend that money on, and let's say you have another layer I would say is you have all your responsibilities taken care of. You're not buying this car at the expense of something else that you should be taking care of first, like your family, your house, your future, stuff like that. You're not over leveraging. You're not going into 200K of debt to buy this car when you only have a net worth of 150K, stupid things like that. Then if you're not doing any of those things and you have enough, like if you have enough wealth and I would say, financially it's not going to hurt you, then yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's your personal preference.
Yeah. No, I certainly think
appreciate the beautiful things in life.
No, absolutely. No, I certainly think just having enough money to obviously to take care of yourself, to do the things that your heart wants to do, as long as it's not like evil or just like immorally like wrong, like you said. I think that like you should aim for that. Like if you want a nice car, dude, if you want a Lamborghini, dude, like I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's nothing wrong with that. God intended for us to like have all these beautiful things because He created them. Like, it's everything. Like, He created everything, and so like we can enjoy the things. He
created our perception of what's beautiful or not.
Yes, I mean that's also true. Yeah, that is also true. But like you, I don't think it's a problem to enjoy these things because, dude, I know this for myself to be true that there was a point in my life to where like I couldn't enjoy myself because I'm like, oh, like I can't have these things because other people didn't have these things, right? And I think a lot of people struggle with that. Like we know, and I'll mention Isaac. He's a good friend of ours. I think he kind of sees it that way. I think he makes good money, but like it's hard for him to spend money and enjoy things,
Well,
and we talked about that and we talked about that personally. Like he finds it hard to go out and buy like clothes for himself, to buy for himself. And he told me personally, it's like it was just kind of like a misunderstanding of kind of like maybe how he like grew up and how he perceived it. Another example for myself, dude, and you kind of touched upon like your personal story, dude. Like I did not grow up with money at all, bro. And obviously, I think I've shared a lot with you. Just growing up like in a third world country, like we didn't have money. A lot of how we make money is like by going to the market. I'll sell water. I'll sell avocados. That's how I'll come upon more like money to be able to buy the things that I personally wanted, which sometimes like was food, maybe like toys for myself. It's like my family really had to struggle and to grind, And so because I didn't have that, now when I came to a place where I had the opportunity, where I have money, it's like, dude, there's just so much that I wanted to do. Like I wanted to get all the nice things. I wanted to buy all this and that, So I think a lot of it kind of also stems from like how your relationship with money, how you were raised up, Particularly perhaps somebody that was raised up in money. Right, and they had already a lot of those nice things. Growing up,
it's hard to go back.
It's hard to. Not that it's hard to go back. It's like they don't feel the need to be able to obtain all these things because they've already had that. They've already experienced that.
It's a standard that they have.
Yeah. There's obviously like with people, there's gonna be like different. Like the people are gonna have different stories. Like I've seen people to where. Growing up, like they had all the things, like their family had the cars, they had the vacations, they had like all the luxury stuff, And I don't know what happened to those people, but like growing up, like they don't want those things. And yes, maybe because they've already experienced it, now they want to live a little more frugal for whatever the reason, right? They want to live a little more frugal. And obviously, like there's nothing wrong with.
Very rare.
It is rare, but like I've definitely seen it. I've definitely seen it. Like I know some people like that.
Yeah.
And then to what you said, like to some people now it's a standard. Like they want to continue to maintain that level.
Well, most people want their lives to.
Yeah, they'd like to increase, And
then that's like, what's the lens you have on that view? What are you trying to improve over time? I think that's the important thing to distinguish. But back to, we were talking about our friend Isaac. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, we share personal things a lot. Like.
Yeah. And, I don't know if he wants to put this out there. I don't know, but I would think that
Flo, what's the time?
For some degree.
Okay.
To some degree, it's if you don't feel like you've taken care of all the things you should and the responsibilities you have, then yeah, it's normal to not feel like you should want those other things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what most people should feel. You shouldn't be thinking about a Lambo at all,
Mm-hmm.
or you can think about it, but you shouldn't be really like pursuing the Lambo if you don't have your basic finances met.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be your North Star guiding you.
See, here's the thing, though, and to some people, they might see that as the very drive that gets them.
That's fine.
You know.
Look, but I get it. But the thing is,
He gets it.
I get it because I didn't want a Lambo. I wanted a Tesla. And I got the Tesla, and I
Yeah.
realized this is just a car after
Yeah.
driving it.
Yeah.
It's not the thing that it's not as all like, and I get that there's different levels to it, but it's just a car.
Yeah.
You move into a house, within a couple months, it's just a bigger house. You feel the same. Your state remains neutral. We're going to be, we assimilate into our environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes the new normal. It doesn't bring you any additional joy on a day-to-day basis. It gives you the moment of gratification when you get the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's often easier for people to obtain what they want rather than renounce them.
Yeah. So, and no, I get that. I get that. So here's something that's going to be kind of striking, and I can't wait to share this, to read this. Are you familiar with the parables of the talent?
Mm-mm.
Oof. And I'm pretty sure we may have talked about this before, Kai, in the past, but poverty. Okay, first of all, let me ask you, like, why do you think people that are poor remain poor? Why do you think the people that are poor remain poor?
There's a lot of reasons.
Like, so just give me like just a few. Like,
Okay,
reasons.
where? Poor where?
Just like financially poor. We're talking about like
Are you talking
financially
about
poor.
in the U.S. or are you talking about in the
Just
world?
anywhere in the world, bro. Yeah, anywhere in the world.
Well, anywhere in the world, like poor in the U.S., I think is very different than poor in any other country.
I think just the general
because-
sense of just poverty. Yeah, just the general sense of poverty. It's like you're poor. Obviously, there's different levels and standard based upon like the geographical location. Somebody
Yeah.
poor here, yeah, I understand that, but just like
well, you could be living in a country that's run by an absolute dictator who does not care for its people and thus does not feed its people or put infrastructure in place so that they get the food they need. And those people can be placed into a situation where they're forced to be in poverty.
Okay.
There's no way for them to get out other than trying to get out of their situation. Like, they can try and move, but very, very difficult to do that. Like, it's very different than in the U.S., where I think your opportunity to get out of poverty is significantly higher than any other area in the world.
Okay.
Where you can absolutely do a lot of things right and get yourself out of poverty.
Right.
But you can't do that in certain places in the world.
That's very true. I think
Like,
that's
the
true.
opportunities just don't exist. We're very lucky here. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people take that for granted.
Yeah. No, you're very right about that. But yeah, you're very right about that. And
I'm not saying we don't have problems here and that the homeless people
Yeah.
shouldn't be helped or
Every-
anything here,
yeah.
but I'm just saying, like, it's a very different situation.
yeah. And so, and I'm gonna read this to you, bro. And just people listening to this, I think people may perceive this. It's very. What's the word I'm
just
looking
read it,
for?
bro.
Wait. It's very. I want to prepare you for what I'm about to read. It's very touchy and it can be very controversial. I want to prepare you for what I'm about to read because even like the first time when I saw this, I was like, you see rappers, a lot of rappers like have kind of like talked about this specific thing. But anyway, I'm gonna read first like the bottom part of this, and then I'm gonna go back to the top so people can understand like the context of it. So, but for to everyone who has, will more be given. For to everyone who has, will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. And in that places there will be weeping and gnashings of teeth. Do you want me to go back and read that again?
No,
do you understand?
I know this.
Yeah, that's why I said like we've talked about this before. So it's it kind of go back to like the poverty thing. That really struck me. So like if you, and this is kind of like how I perceived it. It sounds like if you don't have, like more would be taken away from you.
Yes.
Like how and like
If you're
why?
poor and you get sick, you can't pay for treatment. Your health gets taken from you.
So that's
If
okay.
you're
That's how you
rich and
see
you're
it.
sick, you can pay for treatment.
And more would be given. So okay. So that's
So
how
that's
you.
one example.
Okay. Oof. Now that's good, dude. That's good. That's
There's
good.
many examples. What wealth you can use money to buy more money to grow your money through investments.
Yeah.
You can't do that if you don't have the money.
Yo, that's so good because that's so good because I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that at all.
It's in every aspect of your life, though. So
Yeah.
take this but the thing is, you have to take note.
Flo, by the way, I think this is gonna be like a good snippet to start up in the front. Like, oof. But anyway.
Bro, you got to do these things at the end of the podcast. You can't cut people off when they're thinking.
Sorry, go on.
I'm just saying.
It's like,
look,
I can cut Kyle, but not anybody else.
Don't do this in the future. That's why you're using me as practice, right?
Yeah.
But like, see, because now I lost my train of thought for a sec. Let me get it back for a sec. Give me a minute.
Do you want me?
Oh, the second part of that phrase is very important. Cast out the worthless servant.
Into the outer darkness. Yeah. Oof.
Meaning that you inherently are not producing anything of value.
Oof.
And I think that for most people, you can produce something of value. It's very different if you were born without arms and legs, but even examples of someone born without arms and legs, I forgot the guy, but he's a motivational speaker.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Does not have arms and legs.
Steve something? I
don't know, but like he can even provide value to the world. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything like, I think you choose that state by choosing to be worthless.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily where you want to be in abundance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's very hard to make that little jump. But I think that's the biggest part is you can't be worthless. You have to do something with your life.
And the reason why, because God gives us these talents, and some people may have. And I'm going to go back and read the whole thing so people can have a little more context as to what the tale is. But the main underlying thing is that God gives all of us talents, right? And it's upon you to further advance, or to draw out that talent or to multiply it.
To look for opportunities.
To look for opportunities, because like we all have talents. I think we all have the ability to make money, but some of them don't necessarily develop that skill set.
Yeah.
Right. So this is coming back into like skill set. Right. But again, just the underlying things, like we all of us, regardless who you are, regardless where you come from, you have talents, and you want to further develop that talent.
And it's not just talent, by the way. I think it's also the intangible stuff.
Yes, and I'm just using
perspective in life, your energy.
Yep.
Like a guy who doesn't have the skills, but is cleaning tables and he's doing it with a smile on his face and he's cleaning them aggressively and fast. And he's doing a very good job at what he does.
Yep.
Even though it's this little thing, people take notice of that.
Yep.
You will be rewarded for that. There's fruit in all labor.
Yeah. No, I just love
fruit in all labor. What no labor is. This is in Proverbs, I think. No labor is. Or there's profit in all labor.
There's profit in all labors.
Yeah,
yes.
Regardless of what there's profit, and I think this is also two-part because we're taught that if you have the things you have and you're doing well in life, you should give to the poor.
Yep.
What is that giving to the poor other than to give them money and opportunities?
Yep.
And so if you are someone who's poor, but you're not taking advantage of the opportunities that come, or you're not preparing yourself for the opportunities that come, or you're not looking for the opportunities to get out of your situation, I think that is only hurting you.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm not saying that your situation is good. I'm not saying that it's difficult or it's not difficult. It is. But there is a lot you can do.
Yep, like so much. So much.
Tyrannical. And even then you have, I guess, your spirit abundance. You can have an abundance
in spirit, yeah.
But I don't know. That's tough, man. That's you can't tell that to someone. Like imagine like being in a desert and you're dying of thirst, and some guy who just came into the desert with a ton of water tells you like, hey, be more thankful for your situation.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't go well very much. So
look at what. Of course, Kyle will bring something like. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But like, I do want to go back and like read the whole like the parables, because I just love this so much. And this is actually in the book 0 to 1. You know the book by Yep. And it was just so interesting that he put that in that book. But anyway, so I'm gonna read the whole parable to you, and I think this is very interesting, and just to have more context. So, and this is in Matthew 25, 14 to 30. So, for it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, right? One had more talent. To another 2. To another 1. To each according to his ability. To each according to his ability. Interesting. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talent went at once and traded with them. And he made 5 talents more. So he doubled that. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more, doubled it. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. So talent over here is money, right? Just for us to understand that. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled account with them. And he who had received the 5 talent came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much, right? Enter into the joy of your masters, okay? And he also who had the 2 talents came forward saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I made 2 talents more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He, pay attention to this, he also who had received the 1 talent came forward saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid and went and hid your talent. Again, I was afraid and went and hid your talent into the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, you wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers. And at my coming, I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. And so this guy goes back to what I said in the beginning. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away, and cast a worthless servant into the darkness, and in the places there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Oof, oof. There's just so much that can be deconstructed within that whole parable.
I can summarize that whole parable in one modern statement.
Please go at it.
Scared money don't make no money.
This guy's probably talking about. You said that multiple times into the whole crypto.
It's the truth, though.
No,
yeah. It's absolutely like, what does the third servant do out of all of them?
He goes and hide the money.
He hides it out of fear.
Out of fear. That's what. Yeah,
fear. That he doesn't have the ability, so he doesn't trust himself to make that money back, even if he lost it. Yep. That's number one. Number two, out of fear of losing it, he hides it from the world.
Yep.
So he essentially hides the money, but also hides the ability that he has within himself. That's another part I think most people don't get from that story. And then the other two, even though, and there's a reason there's 3 of them.
Yep.
One is like a super competent individual who doubled 5 from, like gave 5 and now has 10, right?
Yep.
Really competent, someone who's established, someone who's very, very competent. But the second guy, he only has 2.
Yep.
He has only 1 more than the guy who does not have any, or the guy who only got 1. He's not that much more competent than that individual. If you're measuring 5 to 2 to 1, right? He's less than half of the guy who's super competent, for sure. And he's only a little bit better than the guy who's competent.
Yep.
And the only difference between those two is the guy with 2 had the courage to go and do something with it. He had a little more ability because he learned over time, whatever reason, he's more capable. But most importantly, I think it's that he had the courage to do something with that money. He wasn't scared to lose the 2 to gain more. So he gained more.
And then another thing that is said to his ability.
Yes.
It gave to his ability. You know, I think some people just have more ability than others, right? And so maybe.
Yeah, but it's acquired. It's all absolutely acquired.
What do you mean?
You can learn anything. So.
Oh yeah. You can.
It's ability. It's not talent.
Yeah.
It's not inherent gifts. It was based off their ability to be.
Okay, so so just kind of going back to that story to cut you off, but like, so if they get 5, yeah, because that was so like they gave it based upon their ability. So if they gave the 5 to the one that received 1, and 1 to the one that received 5, or vice versa, like I mean, he would have still done the same thing. So do you think they give the guy with 5 talents because he had the ability to be able to produce more or to handle more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if the story flopped,
Mm-hmm.
flip flopped, the guy who got 5 only got 1, he would have at least had 2.
Two.
He probably got a lot more afterwards.
Okay.
I think he would have been like, I think the guy with the ability would have seen that as a test and challenge, and he would have said, I can do way more with this. Why would he give that incompetent fool 5 and only give me 1? I must get more than that guy now. That guy doesn't deserve this.
It gets into
I'm
like
gonna go out
greed.
there, and I don't think it's greed. It's more of like, I have my master is testing me. He wants me to see. I think that would be the second thing. I can't put the words in whatever. I can't say that for sure. But
Okay.
that's kind of how I would view it. If I was the guy who was capable of the 5,
Okay.
and I saw someone who was incapable get the 1, and it was directly from him, I would say this is absolutely a test because I know I'm more competent than him. I'm not saying I'm comparing. Well, I am comparing, but not saying that that's a bad thing or good thing. But I'm just saying that this is now a test for me. I need to do more with this 1 than he can with that 5. And the guy with the 5, if you gave that guy 5, he would be so overwhelmed and so scared of losing that much. He not only would have hit it, but he would have changed his entire behavior. He would have done so many things different. I think he would have lost all 5.
Oof.
I think he would like accidentally tell someone and it would get stolen, or he would do extra things to like try and secure it, and he would lose it. He would hide it in different places and forget where 1 was. It would be a way different situation. So I think this is also another thing that ties to another story, that God will not give you something that he does not believe you can handle.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree.
And so if you're not getting what you want, become better so God will give it to you.
Oof. Okay, so do you think this has into business? Because, dude, oof. Okay. Because a lot of times we pray for things, whether it's more money, whether that's women, whether that's health.
I pray for
Some
a
people
woman. A woman.
Okay, so and I'm
No, I'm messing with you,
bro.
man.
This guy.
I'm messing with
And
you.
I'm just people pray for in a general sense. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, what I was saying is that because we often pray for things, right? And I want to tie this back to what you're saying. We often pray for things, whether that's like money, whether that's a woman, or whether that's like just other things. But so you think that God doesn't give it to us because we're not ready to receive those things. We don't have the capability to receive those things because out of his love, and he wants to protect us. Because if he gave us those specific things, it will do us more harm than good. That's essentially kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. And so
well, we don't know the reason entirely, but that can be one reason. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's true. I think that's valid. I think that's valid. And so if you're praying for things and you're seeing that you're not receiving those things, that means that there's a lot of preparation that you haven't done yet to receive those things. Because if you receive those things, that means you have done the work to prepare to receive those things and to be able to manage it. Because a loving father would not give something to a child that is not prepared, right? And so when you are prepared, you will receive the very thing that you're asking for. And I think just the preparation, and also there's also this quote, I can't remember the quote, but just to understand that the general sense, a lot of times we don't receive what we want. We don't acquire the things that we want because we're not prepared for it. And this kind of goes back to other things. We see this into the world. People, they receive this massive amount, and this is in relation to money, like of inheritance, right, of money, or people that win the lottery. A lot of people end up dead, right, or they just end up bankrupt, or even worse than they were found before, because they've received this massive amount of responsibility, but they didn't have the prerequisite to be able to handle that. They didn't have like the financial understanding, financial literacy, to how to multiply the money, right? Instead, a lot of them will go and waste that money, and then over a period of time, they end up worse than they were, or even worse, like they end up dead because somebody's going to try to rob them to take that money, right? Going back to if you don't have, or if you're asking for something but you don't receive yet, you have to do the preparation to be able to receive those things. It's like the main thing that I want to portray over here, right? This goes back to what you were saying. And I think that's such a big thing, dude. I think that's such a huge thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
I agree, because I can look back on my life now, and if I had been given even what I have now, but 10 years ago, I would have messed it up.
Oof. Yeah.
I would have done things differently, and I don't think I would have been ready for any of this.
Yeah.
So.
And I think just another example of this is that there are very wealthy families, right? Those families, they got to the place that they were because they've learned the necessary skill set to be able to produce wealth. But then their offspring, the kids, don't necessarily have those ability. And this is also on the parent because they didn't teach their kids how to manage, how to handle money. And so a lot of those kids, they grow up. I don't want to use the word incompetent, but they grow up with like a lot of like problems. They lead to a lot of drugs.
It's an archetype at this point. It's a whole archetype of the rich kid using daddy's money to get through life.
Yep.
He's completely, utterly incompetent on his own.
Yeah, and I mean, I was trying to be kind of nice, but okay, yeah, incompetent. They don't have the competency.
If they take away their money, what do they have? Money's an amplifier.
Yeah.
So if you don't have any inherent skills, then you have nothing.
Yeah.
So money's really nothing for you.
Yeah, that's a big one, dude. I think we're gonna need to bring this home. This is at least over an hour. Yeah, we actually have another episode to record on after this. Yeah.
You're recording 2 today?
Yeah, we're recording 2 today.
Am I in this second one as well?
Yeah, you're in the second one as well. Yeah, so we're gonna try to do two episodes, 2 episodes a week, and just so it gives Flo time to kind of prepare and put this all together. But yeah, this is good, man. I like this.
I think we couldn't even touch enough on masculinity.
There's so much to be said, and this is something that we can carry on in a different podcast, because I know we kind of talked about like our main perspective. Like I also kind of want to get other people's perspective in terms of masculinity. So I think this is something that I definitely want to double tap on.
The other 2 categories you mentioned.
Huh?
We only got to money. We got to physical.
Yeah. So
there's sacrifice and humility.
Yeah.
Those 2 are the most important ones, I think.
Yep. There's there's other topics, and so again, I think we can. Sometimes things don't go as planned. We got too into the no, but this is fun. I think this is one of my favorite ones so far. Yeah, this is good.
Every episode with you is fun, man.
I appreciate that. This guy, thank you. I appreciate that. No, like the first episode that we did, that was a little difficult. The second one I liked. The third one, that was difficult. But like this one is there wasn't pressure. This was just conversational based upon like our experience, And so far this is gonna be my favorite one. And so we'll see how the next one goes. But yeah, I really hope you guys got some form of value from the podcast. As always, the goal is to provide value. And we're by no means, again, expert into any of this, the things that we talk about, like biblical things. As you guys saw, I quoted a lot of things from like the Bible, So like by no means, again, we're learning
as well.
And we're sharing our experience, And so I hope you do get some value out of this, or at least just most like an open mind perspective, different perspective, and also just like a level of awareness, right? But anyhow, we're going to close out this podcast. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Also, comment below what you think masculinity is.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, do comment below what you think masculinity is. All right, signing out.